instead of doing like one competition for 400 hours, I'll do four.
Yeah, right? And you make more money, which then means you can do more. I remember I
Yeah.
interviewed someone on the podcast who's a developer, and he's like, through AI, we're actually able to expand our business and actually hire more people because of it. And the best part is the people we're hiring is at a higher pay. Hello, everyone. Rick Albert here with another episode of The Key to the City of Angels. I'm super excited to have Marija Volkman here on the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Now, you're an architect, but you bring a different perspective because of your experiences in Europe. So kind of give us a little bit about your background and how you got into this space.
So I'm Serbian, by the way. So I was born and raised in Serbia for most of my lifetime. I've been through bombing, wars, hyperinflation, dictators, communism, you name it. In 2000, I left that country because of mostly of those reasons. I just want a better lifestyle than being stressed permanently since you were like 5 years old. So I moved to Prague just to finish my master's. So I studied architecture in Belgrade and then for undergrad. And then I moved to Prague to finish my degree. At that time, Prague changed, like the Czech Technical University changed their rules. If you speak Czech language, you don't have to pay anything because school, most of you maybe don't know, but school in Europe is actually free. Universities are free. And although like my parents never stepped a foot in Czech Republic, and like me neither before that, actually I didn't have to pay for school if I spoke the language. I did not speak the language, but I did say I do because nobody tested, and I was like, it's a Slavic language. It's like, no,
Figure it out.
I'm gonna learn, like, well, it's a Slavic language, but it's like a Slavic language. So if I were to learn Spanish, I can probably learn Spanish in 3 months. But if I'm to learn another Slavic language, it doesn't take 3 months, especially if you're gonna study. But I took a leap because I was really desperate to actually leave.
Sure.
I started school and like in 3 months actually did learn the language enough to like participate in school. Also, like a lot of professors spoke English. A lot of people helped me on the way. So I finished school even sooner than I was supposed to. I was supposed to do like my master's like in 3 years. I finished in 2.5. Yeah, so it was like, although I was kind of struggling with language at the beginning, I still was able to actually catch up and like even like go ahead. After school, I started working there. I first worked for a couple of companies. Like first, I started my own business. That was a disaster. First year was a disaster. Although we had really great clients, we had like a third like telecommunication company in Czech Republic as a client, but we knew nothing. Like we were, I think 1 month I spent 200 hours on a phone only. 200 hours like managing the project. Like, can you imagine the rest of the time like drawing, like kind of doing
Sure.
technical things? So like 200 hours on the phone, like managing suppliers, like just running in circles. Basically, like half of those hours were running in circles, not knowing what I'm doing. So I decided to get the job. I started working for 2 companies at one point, again by accident. It seems like everything is by accident. I found myself managing all Microsoft offices in Europe because my company I was working for was designing all office spaces for Microsoft in Europe. The woman that was running the project got sick and I was the next in a row. I stepped up, so they never hired anyone else to do it. So I just like kept on doing it. So, and I was like, I don't know, maybe 27 at that time with like 3 years of experience. Czech Republic was really interesting at that time because they didn't have enough of architects, but like, they were just catching up with the Western Europe when it comes to like money and like lifestyle and so on. So there was all of a sudden people like were actually making money and wanted nicer things, but there wasn't enough of people that had an experience to give them these nice things. Plus I spoke English, right? So I was like, I had an access to a lot of foreign clients, especially that was moving in those expat circles. And of course we I had like reconstructing the building of 7 apartments before I even finished school, right? Those are the opportunities I would never get here because it was just like Wild West.
Yeah, I can imagine. So like, and we'll go into the architectural work that you do in a second, but you brought up how much, because like being an architect, and I've met different architects on the development side, things like it's very, and correct me if I'm wrong, because just so you know, I'm a smart ass, not a know-it-all. It's very like labor intensive, right? Like you have to do the measurements, the CAD drawings, all this. But now you're telling me like, okay, you also have to manage the calls and do that. How because it's so labor intensive, where are you seeing like efficiencies in your business? Like where are you trying
Now,
to be more efficient? Yeah, even like now,
now, now,
given
I mean,
how labor,
honest. I mean, first you have to get the job. Like that is like
right?
there is that's that is I think the least that people talk. We are like first architects are really bad business people. We are not great business people. We are not in this job to make money. We are in this job to save the society and to make it better. First,
Right.
let's
It's
get
the
it done.
artistic side, right?
Yeah, then we have the artistic side. So we are not naturally architecture doesn't attract like business savvy people, right? Then through
Mhm.
school you go through like so much labor, like we stay nights, so we are struggling for our profession, and then you get a job and then you're working 60-80 hours again because you want your project to be amazing and so on. So you've been trained on actually like overworking and like not charging. Right? So that's where our training is. And now you start your own business and you're supposed to now all of a sudden become efficient, right? And like charge for those hours and actually like kind of be a good business person. You're not. So I think now when it comes to efficiencies, like what I'm seeing like drastically in the last year is like using AI. Like
Yeah.
us using AI, just how much time, just as an example, we just did a competition for school, for whole school. Like it's a school, it took us 110 hours to do a competition from beginning to an end. Previous competition we did was for a residential building, which is something we do often and we are known, like we are accustomed to it. It took us 400 hours.
Wow.
So we cut our time by four.
Yeah, no kidding.
Using AI, using Claude to kind of talk through the process, like talk to
I love
construction
Claude.
systems. Yeah, just like kind of to go back and forth in discussions, using all sorts of like programs to get like renderings, like from using actually from using sketches and throwing them into ArchiSyncs, or like Mid Journey, to improving renderings in Photoshop and so on. It cut by four, and I think we got a really good result.
Mhm.
We were able to make a deadline like without like actually going to sleep the night before, which never happened to us before when we were doing the competition. This time we made it, and that's just like in the last year that we are seeing like
Yeah.
huge efficiencies in basically using AI, and which we kind of like because again we can kind of shrink more because we found ourselves just my partner was actually just managing people. He was just like putting people in like harvest and forecast, which is our programs that we do, like to plan time and to track our timesheets. That's all what he was doing, just trying to kind of feed people, right? He had this
Mhm.
responsibility that everybody has to eat and we are feeding families, and like everybody has to get a job. We also still have to be profitable. So this is all what he was doing. It was making him miserable.
Sure.
So as we are like, so we decided to shrink a little bit because we became more efficient. Like we were looking into efficiencies and how to do projects, and it's like it's a whole new profession at this point.
It was funny. I had a conversation with someone earlier today about AI because I was like, "Oh, well, I'm using it here and here," and she's like, "Yeah, but this is taking away jobs." I said, "Not necessarily. To be fair, because of wages going up, things like that, a lot of businesses may not be able to survive. So having some employees is better than having none."
I mean, I just have a feeling, like I'm also saying, like, when we got before how architects had like these big like places, first when I first came to like my first gig was I was working in the summer in a big office in Serbia, and I was supposed to just measure the spaces, right, in CAD and to kind of write in. It was a hotel, right? They've been working on this hotel 7 years. First day they brought me in, they went to take, like, they were showing me a project and they opened the room where all documentation was. It was a room of about 300 square feet. It was full of printed stuff. And they were like, oh, this is furniture. This is like, I was like, I don't want to do this job. I'm like, I'm done. I'm gonna go and like study poetry or like philosophy or something. I'm not gonna do this job, right? So I just think like how we shrank before from like drawing in hand to drawing in a CAD, like and people are still keeping jobs, right? Now we
Yeah.
have AI, I just have a feeling even now, I just have a feeling like I produce more. Like, maybe there are less of us, but like there's more notes on my drawings. There's like more precision, more details, like for pitches now for clients, I produce like renderings, as ideas, as visions. We never did that because that would eat our time. Our proposals are much more, they're bigger, they're more like worked out. Like, I use certain books to kind of improve on our proposals. you know it's just a different way. I just have a feeling I'm producing more.
Yeah. Right. Which again, it almost preserves the jobs that are there.
Now, instead of doing like one competition for 400 hours, I'll do four.
Yeah. Right. And you make more money, which then means you can do more. I remember I interviewed someone on the podcast who's a developer, and he's like, through AI, we're actually able to expand our business and actually hire more people because of it. And the best part is the people we're hiring is at a higher pay.
I mean, I can't say where our profession is going to come. Like, I also think, of course, some jobs will be cut, and
Of course. It's
I
just
mean,
part of it.
it's part of it, right? But again, like, we lost so many jobs on the way. Like, we don't have people. Like, at one point, like, the person that was like making like and putting on horse like feet, like the thing was like one of the main people in the city, right? Do we have any like this profession anymore? I don't know what's even the name in English.
Well, hey, look, we had vending machines. Those took the jobs of store clerks. But I don't see anyone vandalizing vending machines.
I mean, things that like, it's a progress. I
Right.
don't know where AI is gonna. I'm also like a little bit cynical. I'm like, we are not the longest like living like human species on this planet. We might eradicate ourselves, like, so I'm like, we are just a speck on the dust on this planet. This planet is
Right.
gonna survive, like, and it's just like you live, the way present is. And I'm like, I'm not gonna obsess over future, but like I find it personally very exciting. We personally very much use it. We feel very much creative, like more creative, because sometimes you have an ideas, and then when I think about the execution of these ideas, I'm like, I just lose the juice, and I'm like, I just can't do this. And then I have a bunch of other stuff I have to do. So now actually by using AI, it kind of allow us to create more, to enjoy our job
I see what you
more,
mean.
because like I don't have to do the labor actually. So I mean, I'm maybe selfish, and I'm in a position in a career where I really know what I'm doing, so I feel like AI is very, very useful to me. But then again, I don't know how it would be if I was a student now getting out of school and I'm supposed to find job that I don't know much, and they really don't. It would probably be really hard. So I mean, I'm just talking from my position, I must
No, of
say.
course. I mean, look, we'll see. I mean, if universities, whatever, smart, like they'll find a way to incorporate it. So then when they go out to the job, like workforce, it's going to be one of those where like, oh, I have skills in Word and Excel, and now it's going to be in AI tools and this.
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
the person I was talking to this morning about it, I was like, look, she's like, what about all these other kids that are growing? Like, they're going to have to, I don't know, shit or get off the pot. Like, they're going to have to do something to make themselves more competitive. That's not a bad thing. It
But
just means
also
they
like
can't be lazy.
but also I think there's going to be a big shift towards like, manual labor, which I don't think it's bad. It's
Yeah,
like, why
electricians,
is that?
plumbers, yeah.
We were like, we were growing generations in like, I love construction sites, I'm like, I tell people I'm like a blue collar at heart, right? Like I love the desk, and I like drawing on the site, and I like going there, and I like resolving issues on the site, and like, I like to see how things are coming together. And it's like, I just like, we were raised for such a long time, generations, that those jobs are not cool jobs, right? Like, sitting in the office, like doing finance, it's like, why would be like, staring at Excel be much cooler than like building something on the site, right? So I think that like that attitude will have to change a little bit. And like, I think, kind of bringing back plumbers, electricians, like, and especially that those positions, I think like the average age of a plumber is like 45 or something. So we're going to get a lot of people retiring, and we're missing like a lot of people in the middle. So these guys coming now might want to fill the middle.
Which is interesting because you brought up how you basically can do now 4 projects in the same amount of time. You're actually getting more jobs pushed through.
Yeah, quicker.
Right? So
I mean, like,
so the demand, that's interesting. So we could be tracking the demand for plumbers, electricians, because now the process can move faster for them to come in. Right? Imagine if you can only get one job through every few months. Now
Yeah.
you get 3 or 4 jobs through every month. That's more work happening.
There's a question also, like, when, like, are we all going to get these jobs, right? So it's like, that is like also, how much can we build, right? Like, we
Sure,
can't,
there's only so much
how much
land or
demand is
whatever.
going to be. So I think, this is going to be an interesting, I think, probably 5 years,
Oh yeah.
where we have to rebalance and to reshift where we are. And I think this is really crucial time, especially that I'm seeing, like, huge changes from, like, in a month, a 2, a 3, or 4. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in next 5 years,
I agree.
and where do we get.
Now you because I agree with you. I think the next like 5 to 10 years, because like you don't even need to be an expert in AI to use AI, because Claude can like walk you through it. I just spent all afternoon yesterday working on it. Where like if I didn't know something, I just gave it a screenshot and it
Yeah,
figured it out. It's like, oh
yeah,
yeah, here's what's wrong. I'm like, I'm gonna take your word for it. A little dangerous. I'm giving it so much trust, but it's there. So when it comes to architecture and building, even like in Los Angeles, what are you seeing happening? Because you're right. In some ways, we can push through more work, but it's not like we have the land to build.
no, we do, but like there's also, like, at the moment, like, economy, it's kind of waking up a little bit. I think we took a breath with, like, what's going on with our economy and just like our general, like, situation, so everybody's like, I think there was a little bit of like, let's see what's happened. Maybe I'll need money, like, I have tariffs. Maybe I'll need money to save my business so I can't invest further, right? I can't build an addition on my house or my ADU because, like, I might have to save my business. I can't pull, like, money out of my stocks because they're doing so well and I don't know what's going to happen. Like, there was a lot of like hold up. We also had, like, not half of the city, but a lot of city burned down. And I
Yeah.
think that was a huge shock for everybody, where people were like, that part of like building or what's happening in LA, it's a small part. Like, when you look at the overall, like, size of the city, but it was a shocking event. And a lot of
Sure.
people that were part of that, or like, kind of ended up like losing their houses, were actually like, it had a huge emotional impact on them, and it took time for them to decide what they want to do. A lot of them still didn't decide what they want to do. So there was a lot of like interesting things happening that were affecting actually our jobs. I feel like things are moving now a little bit more, like that things are kind of starting to roll a little bit. But again, I don't know when we're going to have another stop, right? Or what's going to happen. It's an interesting time overall. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, I think you have to be really resilient, and I think you have to be really curious and not be like, scared, but be more kind of, okay, what happens? Like, where are the opportunities, right? And I'm Eastern European, right? I've been through, like, this is my third country. So I'm always looking, like, I'm never looking at the door ahead. I'm always like looking at the sideways. Like,
There's
just
somewhere
because I'm
else to go.
scrappy. Like,
Yeah.
I'm scrappy and I'm Serbian. Like, our like way of thinking is never straight. Our way of thinking is like, it's so I'm always like kind of looking at the sideways, like what can happen here? What are the other things we can do?
Well, but even with like the fires, oftentimes and I could be wrong, but I think people had this notion of like, well, it's not going to happen to me, right? Like, it never dawned on me about the Palisades being in a high fire zone, and we've represented clients buying and selling. It just wasn't a thing. Like Malibu, yeah, it's always on fire, whatever, and I mean that loosely, but like the Palisades, no one thought about that. Altadena, no one thought about it, but like now it's a conversation, right? Like I'll meet with clients and I'm like, you're in a high fire zone. Here's what you need to know.
True, but like, insurances did now. Like, they started canceling insurance. Like, they started
Right.
canceling insurance for people, and people like making people go on fair plan. So they did know, like, or they did not know. They just like did their, like, optimization calculation statistics or whatever they do, probabilities and so on. They were like, okay, this is like something is gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
city's not clearing up the bush. There is like, there within, like, I don't know, is drought, or their probabilities basically show that there is a possibility in those areas having fire, right? So maybe we should like listen to them too, or have a conversation with them.
Right. What a concept.
Yeah, what the concept, right? Yeah, like, those people are, they're protecting their business, so if they're protecting their business and they're like, their interest is like for you not to burn, maybe you want to talk to them like what's going on and be ready. And I'm thinking about state, and I'm thinking whoever is responsible to protecting the area, right? Like what happened in Palisades, like, people are getting canceled insurance, and the basin is like not getting water still, like, you know.
Mhm.
So that was a problem. So I think as we are seeing things getting more and more dry, and like we will have more and more fires, there's a way to build better. There's a way to like kind of protect your property or give it the best chance. I think there's never a guarantee, but like kind of give it the best chance for the next round. I don't think next round is going to happen soon, and especially not in this way that it happened now, but it might happen again. I mean, like, you know, it's nature.
Right. So, but how does that? So, as an architect, though, when you would meet with someone and say, "Okay, here's one my vision for building the house," now your conversation has to like shift, right? Because being an architect is very much about like creativity. Now it's like creativity, and we need to put a little bit more practicality in, given the area.
I was so when the whole fire started, my first client actually came a week after the fires. Like they lost their house in the Pacific
Mhm.
Palisades. They have my house already, or they bought the house I built like a year before that. They really liked it. And there was like, our husband, why don't you come and like, you know, make us another one? So I started going into, I knew nothing what's going on, right? Like it was just like a week after fire. I started going to city hall, started like, you know, talking to like people. And then I realized, you know, then I started talking to people that actually also lost houses, or people that like, you know, are in the business that are talking to people that lost houses. It's like you realize people don't know anything, right? That they were like shell shocked. They're supposed to like now build a house, like they lost the house. Not only they lost the house, they lost like, most of the people didn't even talk about the house. They talk about like violin that her grandma gave her at 5, the painting she got for the wedding, the sweater from high school. Like people didn't even talk about houses, they were talking about memories and lives they lost, right?
Mhm.
And like you're supposed to now like tell these people like, okay, you need to build a house. They don't know where to
No
start.
more.
They don't know where to start. So like a week, like somewhere about a month or half, I decided to write a manual for people, like how to build your house from beginning to an end. So they,
Interesting.
so I
Okay.
bought like,
Okay.
I wrote like a little book that explains you like how to clear your lot, what is the budget, what is the soft cost, what's the hard cost, how to hire your GC, how to hire architect. Does your architect has to be licensed or not? Does your what is the soft cost? Like whatever, like budget is not just like, you know, your wall, your plumbing and your light fixtures. Like it's also fees, it's also architects, it's also like, you know, your structural engineer and so on. So I wrote, and also like I wrote how your like, you know, basically your construction should do framing, like walls, windows, and so on, roof, and so on. So I just like gave a little like manual to like almost
Sure.
like, you know, how to build your house from scratch, just to kind of, and also like where to go, where to submit, where to get information. Then from there, I got to write a book for a manual for IBHS, which is basically a nonprofit company that is paid, that is financed by insurances, and insurances basically give IBHS money to burn houses in their facility and to figure out how we need to build so we don't, so we minimize the effect of fire on our houses.
Sure.
So they have a bunch of rules that you can like follow, and then if you get their certification, you basically have a better chance of getting an insurance. So the whole point by IBHS and their program is to teach you how to build a house, teach us architects and GCs how to build a house and give us a better chance for burning down. What I realized by writing the manual, going through case studies with other architects and talking to other professionals, that actually you can build pretty much anything, you know, and it's not going to affect your like, you know, because everybody thinks, oh, like, you know, a fire resilient house, it has to be a concrete and like can't have windows and
Um,
so on. That's not true.
okay.
We actually realized that, like, you know, in our like when I was talking to people, like, you know, I had like Altadena Collective send me a house that was like a Spanish modern, right? I had a very modern house as a case study. I think Foothill Collections, they had like a bungalow, like a craftsman, basically Californian craftsman. All these houses were built as a fire resilient houses.
Mhm.
So if you want, you can.
Sure.
It's not going to affect your creativity, and it's like just another thing to kind of get into, like, you know, as we are looking into views, as we are looking into like, you know, materials and so on. It's just like another thing to take into consideration. It complicates our job a little bit, but if you know what you're doing, it's not going to affect your design.
Yeah, I mean, it keeps you employed. It's like, look, this is what we do differently because we have to factor these things in, right?
You
Like,
have to.
it makes sense, even because even when I work with clients on helping them buy and sell, it's just like even just the paperwork gets more complicated, so we have to think through that. It's just something else to factor in, and it's like if
Yeah.
you don't understand it, then you're not going to make it. Now, it was
Yeah.
one of the things we go to Europe. See, we've gone. Let's see, once last year. This year we've already gone. We go a couple times every few years. We love Europe. The architecture is amazing, right? And I actually saw on Instagram recently where they were comparing like European architecture to like the blocks that we have here in the US. And like, well, how come they do it and we don't? And it's like, well, because those are old and it costs too much, all of that. Like, there's so many factors. How, as someone who worked in Europe and brought it here, how are you kind of like implementing some of the details that you might see in Europe and apply it here?
You can't.
Aha, there you go. Okay. I
I mean,
thought
you
so.
can.
I just didn't want to say
I mean, you
it.
can. I mean, you can when it comes like like so. Basically, let's say aesthetics can be similar, but your details are going to be totally different, right?
Mhm.
Your details, like so from the other outside, it can look like the same, but like always like building in Europe, it's much harder, right? It's
Mm.
way much harder. We have frost. We have like we have
Okay.
changes of temperature, right? So like and here in California, especially in California, I've been working on in California. It's like it's almost the houses are like building furniture, right? Like nobody worries like about like thermal bridges. Nobody worries about your like insulation. I mean, like a little
I see what
bit,
you're
but
saying.
not. They're not as like obsessed with it as we are in Europe, right? Where like the whole house has to be sealed. Like you can't have a single thermal bridge, otherwise it's throw everything off, and so it's totally different. Also, we have totally different materials in Europe. Like we do brick, we do mortar, we do concrete. When we do gyp wall, we always do cold frame. We don't do wood, right? We have we don't cut wood. Like you come with metal frame and you kind of so everything is perfectly like straight. So when I try to when I try to install Italian doors in California, it took me 7 times to put the doors in and out
Mm.
because the wood structure, the wood construction is like this, right? It's bowing, and then like
Mm.
if they're framing it, kind of like this, right? So so it took us 7 times to actually figure out how to install our regular doors, which is frameless doors that we on regular install in Europe. Like it took us 7 times to figure out how to. Now we know, but no, you can't. It's like it's a different detailing. It's a different approach to design. Although you can, I mean, like you can have similar details, but the way the guts of it is different.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, is the clientele vastly different? I know there's like cultural differences, but like and maybe
Huge.
this price point, but I'm just kind of curious, like from a culture perspective, where some of the differences are and how you navigate that.
Huge. So, for example, like in Czech Republic or in Serbia, even if you're somewhere like mid, like for example, you're mid management somewhere, like your salary is like I don't know 150K, let's say a year, you will be able to afford an architect to do your project and to do the design, and you will be buying like Italian tiles and Italian
Mm.
furniture, and like you were gonna
Started
have like a
there. Got
like
it.
you're gonna have here this is like I'm finding it's even difficult to like do even millionaires, right? Like this kind of
Mm.
like this level of design or this level of involvement when it comes to buying nice things, just because things are so much more expensive to build here. Also like labor is so expensive here, like back home, like we use carpenters a lot. Like we actually use like
Yeah.
we would design everything like in the house, everything is like for that house, like everything is total
Mm.
design. Here you always have to like buy from somewhere and to kind of figure it out, just because, and that is like super expensive, right? So it's really much different. And then the conversations of course are different because people are like maybe more educated in design. They grew up with it, like especially in Prague there's a huge pride in like spaces that they build over years. I mean, I had an apartment we were doing that was like half built in Renaissance and half built in Baroque. So like the
Mm.
whole place was mapped. Like I had a painted ceiling from a Renaissance that I couldn't like we couldn't repaint because like it just wasn't a good quality, but we had to protect. So we put another ceiling over it to cover it and to protect it. We had a net on the door that was produced by a factory that was open for like 3 years, and it was like it was known for craftsmanship. That's why they went out of business right after 3 years. But like, there's not much of their artifacts. We had to either store that door somewhere or keep them in the place. So we put it in the closet, like, so when you open your closet, you have this door behind because we just couldn't fit it in a really modern furniture. So we're constantly used to working with old things. And like you see these old things all the time. So there is that like pride of the design and pride of like kind of maintaining that level of beauty of space.
You know, I
Not to
totally
talk
get
about Italians. Italians are a whole other level, right? Like
yeah,
they're a whole other I was like, who is buying all this stuff? Like, and there was like, we were just in Italy like a month ago, and we were in Treviso visiting our business partner. I was like, there's so many factories there. I was like, who are they selling to?
yeah.
Who is buying? How are they like in business? Like, they're selling to, I guess, the rest of the world.
I guess. Yeah, I mean, it is interesting. When I talk to people about LA, I do say LA is very much a tear down city. Like, we
Yeah.
like to tear stuff down and rebuild. To be fair, some of these homes, when they're like, in like Miracle Mile, not far from West Hollywood, it's like they were these two-bedroom bungalows. You can't really do an addition. You can't really work with it. You almost like have to tear it down. But because most of the city doesn't have any sort of historical preservation or anything like that, so you can build whatever you want. And I remember for the longest time, these modern boxes were like all the rage. And you
But
see
also
that,
like just to like we don't keep everything in Europe either. You keep quality stuff. Like we don't keep
Mhm.
things just because they're old, right? Like so
Mm.
even when you're like otherwise we won't get anywhere, right? Even in Prague, like when I was talking about the apartment that was half Renaissance, half Baroque, we do have apartments that you were knocked down, right? But this was
Sure.
like, for example, this was like a protected building that was mapped, and you have to talk to your monument department to actually like kind of to negotiate what you can keep, what you can't, and how to keep these things. But not everything is like that. So not everything is worth keeping. And it's like this is what is happening also in LA. I just had an issue in Pasadena where they want to keep the whole street preserved. Like you have a nice of like a couple of nice craftsmanship on that street, but the rest is really not quality, like neither architecture nor like atmosphere or anything. So there's like I think things do need to progress and they do need to evolve. I think LA has to go up, not out anymore, because we
Mhm.
are just spending so much money on filling potholes and we can't have nice things because we are so spread out. We can't have parks, we can't have like more stuff that are actually better for our society and our, because we're just like managing the city, right? It's too big. So I think we have to change something about the city and move up. We are also like parking now. Like half of the life I'm parking. Like, I like half of the day I'm just looking for parking or parking. Like, so we have to like get into public transport somehow more. So I think cities do need to change, especially LA is such a new city. And and I'm not against tear down here. I'm like, I just think like, things were kind of quick, to build. But then, like, I think Marika Mile probably shouldn't be tear down. That's for sure. Like something that should be preserved. It has a special character, and it has a really high quality architecture and craftsmanship too, and also has that atmosphere. But there's not many areas in the city that are like that.
Yeah. No,
You
I
know?
mean, there's some neighborhoods that are, Hancock Park, some of those
Yeah.
things are beautiful, stunning. And then there's others where it's like the home isn't quote unquote special, right? Like it's just there.
Yeah.
Ta-da.
Yeah.
And then,
Just like
one of the things I've noticed more honestly in the Valley is like I'm seeing these additions being done on homes, but there was no thought put into it,
yeah.
right? It's
Yeah.
like, here's a house. It was almost like we need more space. So they just built up like right now. I'm like, it's at least make it look like intentional. Like
But
take an extra
but
step.
that again comes to the culture. Like as I
Right.
talk in like in Europe, it's like here, and I was running on that. Like actually when we were starting, like after the fires, and still running into that because people are not as like interested or educated, or like they just hire general contractor, and then general contractor does whatever, right? So there is not like much understanding of like what architect does necessarily. It's just like, oh, I need more space, and then like let's just build more space. He gets to hire somebody to do some drawings, and like and then they just build it, right? That's what I'm saying. The clientele is different in Europe because they're like, okay, I have this like beautiful house and I want to do an addition, and I looked through a couple of magazines and this is what I've seen. Like, can we do something like this? And then you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. Let's do that. So it's like, again, there's more awareness, I think, about the space and about architecture and about like appreciation where you live.
I agree. I can
And
see
it's
that.
like, I think it's a general, like how Europeans are. We are like, we have an older continent, and like, there is more about like, we have more museums, I guess, and we have, I don't know. It's like, it's much different. Like, it's like working here and working in Europe is like much more different. So that's why we're like, if you check our website, our projects in Europe are like much more craft oriented. It's just because we have clients that like want to pay that, right? Here, if you want a project like that, you're getting into gazillions of dollars, right? Like, interiors that we would do in Europe for maybe like 200K, here would cost like easy 4 or 5 million.
Yeah, I could see that. See that. Well, Marija, this has been amazing. How can people get a hold of you if they want to work with you, all that fun stuff?
We have a website. I don't know if you're going to put my website under
Yeah,
the
we'll put stuff in the
episode.
show notes.
Yeah. So it's going to probably be in the description of this conversation. You can find us also on Instagram and Archicraft US. It's also going to be in the description. On our website, you can find my phone and my email. You can contact us there. On our website, I will be putting links to the both manuals that I mentioned. They're going to be there for free as a free resource. How to build your house after a fire, which might be useful for anyone who actually want to build the house, not like even
Too fair, yeah.
Yeah, just like, half of it is basically just common sense, like how to hire, how to budget, and how to file the permit. And also I'm going to put on our website also the link to the manual how to build actually fire resilient houses and get certified by IBHS and actually get the better insurance and like, have a better chance next time. So those are the resources how people can reach us. Like, I'm always happy to talk. I'm always happy to connect with people in a profession too, not just with clients. I love meeting people that are like, get general contractors, plumbers, electricians. Like, you never know what kind of collaboration can come out of that. Interior designers also, developers are welcome. I work with developers a lot also, especially in high-end residential. I'm happy to talk. And I talk a lot.
No, I appreciate it. Look, you have a niche and I love it. So thank you again so much for coming on the show. And for everyone listening and watching, I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thank you. Thank you.
Want to keep unlocking the secrets to building real wealth in Los Angeles? Stick around for the next episode. Tap the video on screen to keep watching.